Let me talk about mentors really quick here. I get asked all the time, Brian, how do I find a mentor? I look at you and you have some of the most incredible mentors in the world. And I do. I've got to be in the top 1% or 1/10 or 1/100th of 1% when it comes to mentors. Dan Pena, the $50 billion man, came to my movie on Friday, even though it was probably more on the snowflake spectrum of the movies he would like to watch, because it was about getting in touch with personal demons and feelings. I talked about my heroin addiction and overdose in 2001. Yeah? Put that in your pipe and smoke it, Mr. $50 billion man. He had to watch that in the audience, right? I was crying on film. John Joseph was talking about sexual abuse and crack addiction. I mean, it was getting real, folks, and raw. We're asking about the purpose of life, religion, spirituality, about demons, about goals, about addictions, about being addicted to Ironman races. And there's a lot of real talk in this movie. And the $50 billion man sat through the whole thing. Apparently, Mariana told me that she looked over and every time I was suffering on screen and sweating and like breaking down and struggling and crying, he was laughing. So that's really good. And his wife, Sally, was next to me and she was laughing at all of John Joseph's jokes. And I got injected one time with a needle and Sally was laughing. So I'm glad that they were entertained. But, you know, Dan showed up and supported me. And that's a big deal, you know, and to have a mentor like Dan is a big part of my life. And I have mentors like him and Ido Portal and Dorian Yates, and so many of the London Real guests are now mentors to me and they mentor me in some way. And so if you're looking for a mentor, very important that you first give something to a mentor. Second of all, never use the M word. That's what I always say. So again, if you're ever starting a mentor relationship, always give something first. Always bring them something, always create an episode with them or a piece of media or a podcast. That's what I always do. I always see how I can help them first. Can I introduce them? Can I give them some advice on their business? Always start with you giving them something. I can't tell you how many emails I get every week that say, Brian, I want to buy you a coffee. Brian, let me pick your brain. Brian, London Real would be great for me, blah, blah, blah. Brian, can you put me as a guest on London Real? It's all me, 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 me. Everyone's asking me for things. I don't have time for that. Every 5 minutes that I don't spend producing great content for all of you is a waste. So again, if you come to a situation with a mentor, lead with reward. What's in it for them? They are in the power position. Do something for them, all right? Don't ever ask to buy someone a coffee, right? It just screams of energy vampire, right? If ever I see an email that says they want to buy me a coffee, I don't even reply. I just put it I just delete it. And so remember that when you're approaching people, these people are busy, they've got other lives. Second thing is don't mention the M word, right? No one wants to hear you say, will you be my mentor? It makes you all freaked out. You're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna take me weeks. I rarely use the M word. I happen to use it with Dan because, you know, he talks about mentoring and things like that. So I actually call him that, but I never use that in the first 3 years of our relationship. And I'm glad I didn't. So that's very important. And a few other tips on mentorship I got from Dan. One is have something in common that's not about what you want to be mentored on. So if you have a business mentor or a tennis mentor or an entrepreneurship mentor, have something else in common. And Dan had 3 famous mentors in his life. One was Costas Gratsis, and they both enjoyed fine food and wine together. One of his mentors, they played tennis together. One of his mentors, they played golf together. If you want me to be your mentor, and by the way, I'm not accepting any menteeships right now. If you want to be a student in the academy, that's as close as you can get. But maybe you want to talk to me about the UFC, about mixed martial arts, about Brazilian jiu-jitsu, about filmmaking, things I love. That's how we have a relationship outside of that. And the final thing you remember with a mentor is when you meet for lunch or dinner once a quarter, you pick up the tab. You pick up the tab. Even though your mentor is much richer than you are in most cases, you pick up the tab. It's an amazing gesture. And Dan said even when he was broke and the guy knew he could barely afford to pick up the tab, he did it anyways. And it was a gesture showing the mentor that you value their time. And so I go to dinner with Dan sometimes at the goddamn Ritz and it's like $2,000 for the meal. And I know that Dan doesn't need the money and I pick up the goddamn tab, you know, even though, you know, I could do other things with that money, like buy a new camera, but I pick up the tab because it's a sign of respect to Dan, and that's what I do. So that's some gold right there, folks, when it comes to mentorship and finding a mentor. Again, find someone, lead with reward, show them the spark and fire within you. When I see someone that's excited and passionate and wants to go crush the world, it reminds me of me and I want to help them. And so be that person and you'll attract great mentors.